Long gone are the days of waiting to be seen in a doctor's office only to have that awkward conversation with your healthcare provider. Wisp gives you access to sexual and reproductive healthcare from the comfort of your home. Get treatment for BV, yeast infections, UTIs, and much more delivered directly to your home or ready for pickup at your local pharmacy in less than 3 hours. The best part? Wisp is discreet, convenient, and you don't need medical insurance to receive care or prescription medication. Visit us today at hellowisp.com.
Meta AI is the personal AI to help you with whatever you need. Plus, it meets you where you are. Not only is Meta AI now an app, but it's also on the apps you already know and love: Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and Messenger. Plus the Ray-Ban Meta glasses. It's easy to access wherever you are. So whether you're talking or texting, Meta AI is convenient to use throughout your day. Experience our newest AI that's tailored to you by downloading the Meta AI app. Try the Meta AI app today on the Apple App Store and Google Play.
So we're back here with Laura, serial killer whisperer, and she's got somebody on hold, but we're not sure yet who it is.
Who is it?
Who is it?
He's 5 minutes late, so you want to call down to Senior? Yeah, call him on. Don't say his name.
Okay.
Okay, so we're
back at Vacaville, huh?
Back at Vacaville. Mm-hmm.
It's the Serial Killer Roundtable Part 3.
Or is it just one, or we have one, just one or two?
Two.
Okay, so Serial Killer Roundtable.
Yeah. There was one actually right after Karen Reed's conviction. They were all they've all been following it.
Mm-hmm.
There was a huge party line on right after the conviction. We all hopped on. And I was like, we should have filmed it that night because everybody was weighing in about Karen Reed because they've been following the case.
What was the general consensus?
She's innocent.
Cops, those dudes framed her?
It's obvious. I mean, I think they did a poll and it was like, I think I heard it was like 98% thought she was innocent or something.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely, we have friends in police.
In law enforcement, we're pro-police. I mean, we're not here to disparage police.
But they said it was very shoddy investigation.
And it's just, I hate when this stuff happens because
I know, it just makes them all.
It makes them, and it's like you can't judge everybody by a small group of people. Like today, I was with my friend whose husband is and works in the law enforcement, and we were saying the same thing. We're like, it's sad because. And he's a great guy and a super intelligent law enforcement officer detective who is,
lineage of like law enforcement in his family.
Yeah. And it's like this kind of stuff, it just makes people question them. And they're trying to do one of the hardest jobs out there.
It is a hard job.
I don't wish that job on anybody.
Yeah.
But they can act like jerks sometimes.
But they're people. They're just people. I mean, that's the thing. It shouldn't be about like what you do for a living. It's what's your character? What kind of person are you? It's not about, are you a cop? Are you a lawyer? Are you, whatever. It's
I had two
your
friends
character
out of high school that went straight into the police academy and state trooper police academy. And I saw them like they were on leave and we met at a bar. And they, they had their crew cuts and they were just like all jacked up and we went to this bar and they just got shit faced and then got into a fight outside and they called the local cops and these, my friends just flashed they weren't even through the academy yet, but they had like sort of badges or something like that. And they flashed their statey badges, like, academy badges. And the cops didn't do anything to them. They just let them do whatever they want. And they just let them, and they were obviously in the wrong,
and
I looked at it, I'm like, wow. I thought for sure they were going to get in trouble. I was like, man,
some people just get drunk on power. It's really just comes down to that.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's part of
doesn't make room. This is an office building. If you're like a manager over someone or a little bit of power,
you see it all the time. You give someone a little bit of power and then they take off running.
Right.
It's just unfortunate that it happened in that environment,
Yeah.
I feel bad for his parents and his family because now they don't know what happened to him.
I was hearing that the reason the father wasn't at the courthouse is he believed Karen was innocent. That's why
we
didn't see him. And I guess when he did come to court, he sat behind the defense.
John O'Keefe's father?
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be really hard because, he was in law enforcement. They become very tight, and you want to believe what they're saying is true. As the mom, I can totally see why his mom, would want to believe them. If that was my son, I would want to believe them too. No one wants to think badly of the police.
No, but sometimes it happens. Like, that story I was just telling you about, the one guy selling, drugs out of a pizza place, and then they just wanted to scare him, and they pushed him, and his head hit the weight bench and that kind of stuff. Same with the situation with Cindy's friend that she grew up with, Marty. Her father, or Marty's father, found out that they were selling drugs out of his bagel place, and the cops were involved, and that the guy he borrowed money from him was running the bagel place, and so he wanted his money back, and they didn't have the money back, so the cops were involved, and they killed his parents. And they
blamed it on him, and he was only 17 years old.
And he spent 18 years in prison.
Wow.
Horrible story.
But the cops were involved, and that was Suffolk County. And if you've heard what happened in the last...
Oh, yeah. We know about Suffolk County.
That's where I grew up.
Yeah. So, but independent of that, there are a lot of good cops there. But the ones that, sometimes it's that thin blue line that they talk about where they,
Right.
They wouldn't be making movies about it or documentaries about it,
Exactly.
Like 90% of them, 95% of them are all good, but it only takes a few to really make it bad, just like anything.
Sad, but it's true, yeah. And I mean, same with we've seen it in the prisons with the correctional officers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When it's that power, it's that corruption, and it's not all of them. It is very few, but it happens.
In 1999, right before I went to do a documentary in Corcoran State Prison, they were just on the heels of a huge scandal where they were taking the correctional officers were pitting rival gang members in the shoe.
Yeah.
We got him?
Yeah, got one or two.
All right. Well, I'll let you lead the discussion, Lauren. You kind of can, and we'll kind of just listen and chime in when we can.
Yeah.
Is that lovely intro from the prison?
I know, right? Okay. So.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. So we have senior and junior back. We're supposed to have somebody else, but.
Two's good.
We have junior and senior back on with us today.
Okay.
Hello.
Let me turn you guys up too.
All right, can you hear us, junior and senior?
Yeah. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great.
Okay, great.
All right, well, welcome back to the podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Discussing the Karen Reed. Junior, I know you've been following it. Senior, have you been following that case at all?
Which case is it?
Karen Reed. Her boyfriend was found in the snow. She was acquitted, yeah.
I heard she was acquitted. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard. I saw the news.
Yeah.
What did you think of the acquittal?
I really don't know that much about the case. I just heard about it.
Okay.
And I wasn't surprised that they acquitted her, though. But I don't know as much as possible that I should about the case to be able to make a judgment.
What about you, Junior?
Well, it was a doozy for sure because, at appearances, when you hear the story, it sounds like, okay, this person could have done it. But then when you start seeing the evidence and the characters involved with the investigation and the characters at the house or friends that came or text messages and conversations, it just blows up like, oh my God, here's another. I mean, I don't necessarily believe OJ is innocent, but it reminds me of that kind of trial, like here goes these dirty cops, Mark Furman kind of stuff, So it read dirty all over it, and it was surely a righteous verdict that she deserved.
Yeah. Well, I just saw that Proctor interview. I don't know if you guys watched it right after.
I watched a little bit of it. Yeah, he didn't do himself any favors.
He
Call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
He did not do himself any favors at all. I thought it was bad.
All self-serving.
Yeah, but I thought it was interesting because I wasn't aware that or maybe it was from, I don't know if it was from that interview or right before that I found out the Alberts were babysitting his kids. And I was like, the
that night?
Not that night, just in general. Like, that's how close they were. Like, they were watching the lead detective's kids.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of, shenanigans like that. Like, even the judge had a relationship with, a cop or something. So that was just really not kosher.
Yeah.
That was involved in the case.
How do you not recuse yourself in that situation? That's the part I didn't understand. That judge was in it knee deep, and she should have backed away and let another judge handle it, especially after she handled the first trial. Another judge should have handled the second trial.
You're right.
Yeah, I thought that was really odd too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because I
was talking to Laura earlier, and there was an interesting piece of history with that courthouse, that specific courtroom. I believe it was 1908. They also charged and falsified evidence and convicted. I don't know if it was 2 teenagers or 2 young men, but they convicted them and hung them. And years later, they acknowledged that it was a wrongful conviction or wrongful execution, and they made a placard that's outside that courthouse now in remembrance of that situation. And they were saying that they should put a placard for Karen Reed because it was a trial of the century with the same situation, to show the history of that courthouse, that courtroom.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. Salem has that for all the people who were killed during the witch trials. There's a special plaques for everybody. You can walk around.
Does it say oops?
And your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
It should. Yeah. No, it's just like when they killed them back for the witch trials, they didn't get headstones or anything. It was really horrible. So it's like these plaques, and people go and can leave flowers and read all the names because they don't even have tombstones for people who were just really murdered there. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question for both senior and junior, and I guess senior you can answer first. What is it like being in prison and then hearing all these other kind of whatever news you get? I mean, do you follow other criminal cases, or is it too close to home, or do you get involved like the rest of us when something like this happens?
Well, and this is senior.
Yeah.
It depends on which case it is. If it's a case that may have something to do with my case in the future that my attorneys can use, then yes, I'll follow it. Otherwise, I'll just listen to it maybe once or twice and hear the verdict and leave it alone at that. I don't pay that much attention to most cases that are out there nowadays.
Okay. That's interesting. So you want to, if you find something that's similar to your case and you may be able to glean some information from it and hopefully maybe get some useful information that your attorney can use, anything that happens, and that it can serve as a precedent for maybe your case. Yeah.
I would case as closely as you suggest.
Got it. How about you, Junior? Are you interested in cases outside the prison walls, or is it something that, if only, like, obviously you heard about the Karen Reed case?
I pay attention to certain trials, just to get, for example, if I see something on TV, I just get the headlines and kind of get the general information or the general sense of what's going on, and then I don't watch it. But if it's a trial like Karen Reed, or another trial, like Senior said, that might have something similar resemblance to the charges I was charged with or my case, I would pay attention to get the same knowledge that Senior does, trying to give my lawyers tips, or like sometimes I watch them because it gives me memories that I don't necessarily remember about things in my trial. It was giving it like a reflash. And I'll remember stuff, and it will make me think, well, I should have told my lawyer about that. I forgot to tell my new appeal lawyer about this. So it is helpful, and I do pay attention to certain cases. And if I sense that there's some injustice like there's with this, it gets me kind of incensed, because in prison, guards do stuff that's kind of shady sometimes. Then you see judges like the one in Karen Reed, or officers, and it makes you like frustrated, because they want to hold you to a high standard, or they want to make you follow rules, but yet they're doing dirty stuff, and they're making it look like criminals are the only bad people around, when there's other problems in departments, and it's more of a social thing in our society than it is like one person's bad or another person's good, but they try and portray it, and I watch it because of that. It content to be seen, and I want to watch it because I want to make sure, or hopefully see that they don't get away with it like they did in Karen Reed's trial.
That's interesting. It's interesting. I guess they just doing a little intel while they're watching that stuff. I guess that, and you say that when you hear about it and you watch it, kind of triggers when you were in trial, and makes you remind yourself of, wait, I got to do this, I got to do that for my case. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think I've discussed this with Rob and Cindy before, but I wanted you guys to kind of go into it, because I always talk about how, when I'm talking to you guys, specifically on death row, I would say, but there's almost different levels. Like when I talk about Bittaker, everyone's like, oh, he's the worst. Or you look at Ing, and it's like, oh, he's a different breed. There's a different levels, I guess, deviance or evil or the crimes or whatever. And I wanted you guys to weigh in on that and talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. That's an interesting point that you make.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I try not to judge because I don't want to be judged myself. I've already been sentenced to death, and I would prefer to just leave it at that instead of passing it on my judgment on to somebody else about their case. Because you never know, what's going to happen out there nowadays. There's so many different cases, and every time I hear about a case, it's always news to me. I don't know all the details, but I may have heard about something that I didn't particularly agree with, and so I try to keep it to myself.
How about you, Junior?
Sometimes I judge and sometimes I don't. I think it's human nature to judge each other for something at one point in time or another. But I try to not judge. But I'm a person that likes knowledge, and I like to know my environment or know who I'm around. So I become aware of certain people either in my social circle or in a similar situation. But I don't necessarily judge, because, like Senior was saying, I got too much stress dealing with my own stuff, much less trying to sort trauma or bad karma. This environment, I've had a lot of people ask me what it's like being in prison, and I'll tell you the same answer I told them when I first entered the prison system. It's like a woman's beauty parlor on steroids. The gossip, the games, it's crazy. So I try and avoid the nonsense as much as I can.
Yeah, I used to call them gossip girls.
Who's gossip girls? Who would be gossip girls?
There are some people.
They gossip more than in a beauty parlor. Like they just all gossip. It's like 13-year-old girls in prison. Am I wrong?
To further my answer, there's some people that you can't avoid judging because they're so blatantly like oblivious to reality or
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
who they are or anything. I'm kind of speaking again about Charles Inn. There are certain guys that you just can't ignore the level of not only their stupidity but their messed up crime. And when you see those kind of people, it eats away at me because it makes me really sad when I saw the picture of Paul and the moms and the kids. And when I see that stuff, it really messes me up.
I had sent Junior the 30-second clip of Lynette, the scream tape that was played in court.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So Junior had heard it, and
You have 60 seconds remaining.
We spoke right after it, and he said if I had heard that while he was alive in San Quentin, he was like, I would have treated him so differently.
Yeah. Well,
Speak about that, Junior.
Yeah, I'll speak about it. I've read pieces of Ward's book because she wanted like advice or wanted
You have 60 seconds remaining.
certain parts of it that I can't stomach. And we're convicted criminals, convicted murderers, whatever you want to call it. But we have a heart or we have a moral standard. And when you read certain things or see certain things, it tugs at your heart or like messes you up psychologically because even to people in prison, some of that stuff is like way out there that I can't fathom how, why, like what would drive someone to do certain things. And when I heard that, I told Laura, I don't have FBI agent listen to that. I can't handle it was a 30-second clip, and all 30 seconds wasn't the screening. Just the 15 seconds or 5 seconds, whatever it was of the screening that I did hear was enough for me just to be like, oh my God. Oh my. But like, how can you have sex or rape that person after you hear them screaming or while you hear them screaming?
Nope. Looks like we lost him. Interesting. That was an interesting experiment to really do with him and have him listen to that.
It sounded like he had a little bit of empathy there.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
With I would say possibly with him. Actually, you know what? I wish I could reveal who they maybe like down the line. But I will say who's the one I could closely reline them to? Ford is like there's a lot of self-reflection there.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like he's very self-reflective.
Yeah. Which you don't.
Both of them are. Both of them seem like they are.
These two are. Which is it's abnormal typically. Yeah. You talk to serial killer X and Clark and
and none of them have any remorse or empathy or nothing.
There's no even hey. Where's Senior? Okay. But yeah, I would say but there are some that have this who can self-reflect. We were just talking about how you guys are very self-reflective, and I said very much like Ford, which is not typical that you don't see. Because Cindy said I thought I heard empathy, and is that possible? And I said you guys are very self-reflective, and I've noticed that with Ford, but it's not typical. Like, and serial killer X.
You do not get many inmates that are that reflective.
No.
And it's few and far between. But I'll say this. I've seen some people that are reflective and change or understood what drove them to do or what got them to the place to do what they did. And I enjoy seeing that because I enjoy seeing the growth because then it helps other people. Like I hope that the people.
You just have to.
Swap in.
Swap them in. Yeah.
So
But when you do find the ones that are self-reflective, that's where the wealth of knowledge is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that's where you get a lot of your answers.
Mm-hmm. What I will say too is one thing that I've noticed, when you find an inmate who's self-reflective and, can really help you understand and aid with your research of forensic psychology too.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I would say a big thing you look for is, or at least something I look for is just accountability. They're very accountable for what they've done, and they've reflected on it, and they can tell you reasons of why this has happened, why this has transpired. And it's not excuses. It's full accountability.
Ownership.
Yeah. So that's something I always look for first, because any inmate can tell you, I'm sorry I did this, and give you, a whole spiel of why they're remorseful, but then there's no accountability. So
Right.
I look for that accountability first.
Yeah, because otherwise it's just a hollow apology with no real roots.
I mean, that's a good question for both of these guys. I mean, if they told that to you, I mean, junior and senior, I mean, do you guys have full accountability and ownership over why you guys are behind bars?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead, senior. You can go first, senior.
Yeah,
I do.
yes, I have full accountability.
Senior, you go first. Go, bud. Sorry about that.
Okay. I have full accountability, and I admitted it on the witness stand. I took the witness stand in my case during the penalty phase. But when they found me guilty, the next phase after the trial is called the penalty phase. They determine whether or not they're going to give you the death penalty or life without or what have you. And I admitted it on the witness stand that I was sorry, and I think that most of the families of my victims, I think they understood where I was coming from, because a few of them actually passed word to one of my attorneys and told me that they appreciated what I had said on the witness stand. So the answer to your question is yes.
Yeah. How did that make you feel?
Oh, at the time, I felt that it was necessary, because the prosecution, the way they handled my case, they made it look like I was some kind of heartless animal, somebody that didn't care about what actually happened. They didn't go through my family history or my mental state or anything like that. So I felt it was necessary that I take the witness stand and speak for myself. So in that situation, it made me feel pretty good, actually. But it took me quite a few years in San Quentin to come to grips with what I had actually did.
Interesting. How about you, Junior?
I've always wanted the truth to come out. When I got arrested, I was the youngest guy on death row, and when I was going through my trial, it really bothered me that there was so much manipulation of evidence. Because as a kid, you think the justice system is about truth and justice, and that you won't be punished for something harsher than what you actually are being accused of. They won't manipulate the charges and exaggerate them to get a harsher sentence. And when I saw this stuff happening, it really got to me. And I tried to do a media interview, and they twisted my words. And I've been the victim's son since I've been in prison. And it was very, very beautiful. I wanted to give the victim's son. I wanted to give him some kind of peace and just like give him the visit that he was asking for. And a lot of viewers might think that inmates don't want to talk about their case or don't want to say sorry, or that we're unempathetic towards the victims' families or anything. But the one thing that people forget in the heat of the moment is, someone might be accused of murder or murder, rape, or whatever, and yes, you do have that nasty judgment against that person, or fuck that person, or that person needs to die, or whatever. But what they don't realize is our lawyers tie our hands. The justice system ties our hands. Let's say anything you say can and will be used against you. So we can't apologize, or we can't speak in certain ways or use certain terminology because it can mess up our appeals. And that's the one bad thing that I wish that the Congress and politicians would make a law for, is because there should be a way that once you're convicted and it's all said and done, if you are a person that has grown and reflected, they shouldn't hold your statements against you in your appeals because you're not making nasty statements that they can use per se because you're talking about the crime. You're more so speaking in the sense that you're trying to help people heal or understand and program in the prisons, because there are certain programs, like I'm in a program now, where you have to take full accountability for your crime. And I can't say certain things or do certain things in this program because they can be held against me. So the system is prohibiting us from doing the right thing, so to speak.
Interesting. Yeah, it sounds like it's a catch-22, but it sounds like you've taken full ownership. I mean, obviously you didn't take the stand like senior, but it sounds like you've taken full ownership of what you've done.
I wanted to take the stand. I did. I had a bad situation with my trial, and I won't go into that, but I did want to take the stand. And I will say one other thing.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
The inmates don't want to visit the victim's family or whatever. But when I told a bunch of my friends that I was going to visit the victim's son, you would not believe how many of them asked me to help me do that with my case. There's a lot of guys that want to do it. We just have our hands behind our back because of the system.
Do you think would be a good program as, the unification between, the victims' families or friends with the offender? I'm not talking about with just the offender, but do you think it's really a good program for the victims' families and friends? I know it's been praised a lot it has been tried.
I believe it is. But there's a big problem with that.
Imagine this. The best pasta sauce you have ever tasted sits abandoned on a plate. Wasted sauce. That is a tragedy. If only you had used Barilla al Bronzo pasta. Its bronze-cut texture holds your sauce and scoops up every last drop. The Italians call that scarpetta. Capture sauce the Italian way. Barilla al Bronzo. Click or tap the banner to find out more.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Healthcare professionals can lead their careers with LinkedIn. Discover jobs by specialty, preferred shifts, and even desired salary. From mental health therapists to radiology technicians, it's now faster and easier for healthcare professionals to find the right fit. Learn more at linkedin.com/healthcare. Side effects may include faster job placement, improved work-life balance, and increased career satisfaction.
The rural way of life is about making everyone feel at home. Tractor Supply chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to transform intelligent customer service. Together, we put the power of AI to work across 2,200 stores, keeping things running seamlessly inside, curbside, and countryside. This is elevated customer experience. This is Tractor Supply with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
Shopping is hard, right? But I found a better way. Stitch Fix online personal styling makes it easy. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want. No subscription required. And he sends just for me pieces, plus outfit recommendations and styling tips. I keep what works and send back the rest. It's so easy. Make style easy. Get started today at stitchfix.com/Spotify. That's stitchfix.com/Spotify.
When I did mine, I was the first inmate approved by the San Quentin warden to do this program. And the way they approached me and the way that they tried to control what was going to happen, the visit between me and the victim's family, I did not like. To me, that is like me having sex with somebody.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I don't need some program coordinator in the room telling me what I can and can't say or how to say it.
It's an intimate experience for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I believe that these people need to be a little bit more hands off and not be so controlling. And I will say this in their defense also. There are inmates that don't know how to speak. They don't know how to express themselves. So in some situations it's needed, but in others, they need to let the visit flow the way it flows.
Yeah, I think so too.
The perpetrator and the victim's family need to get, the victim and the perpetrator's family need to get out what they're feeling or thinking. And you don't need someone there stopping that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I've had victims' families reach out to me and ask me about like going with them, wanting to do this. And I've always said, like, I can if you're more comfortable, because it's usually the first time going to a prison. Of course, I can help you through it, be there with you, like moral support. I go, but we get there, I'm just going to fall back. And I mean, I'll just sit there as like when you need me. But like, what I think you should do is if you start to feel comfortable, tell me to go, like, because this really should just be an experience, but just use me as spiritual support.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many prisons are doing it in each state, but, you know, I remember like 15, 20 years ago, because I was actually doing research to do a documentary about restorative justice. This is basically what we're talking about, you know, where the offenders meet their victims or their victims' families. And, you know, and it's a controversial thing.
I mean, we did it for a documentary with the Green River Killer and one of the sisters of the victim. And
it turned out really well.
And the Green River Killer's family, who didn't know what he was doing, because that was another big thing. The family didn't know that their relative was a serial killer. And when Jenny finally was able to sit down with him by herself, it was very, very cathartic for her, and it changed her life.
Yeah.
She was able to let it go.
She was a housewife who was suffering from a lot of depression. And after that, she became a state representative for Washington, and she's she's like a big politician now, and she's fighting for causes. So it really kind of uncorked all of this guilt and anxiety and fear,
and release it all.
So
you know,
in the proper setting, I think it works. It can be very helpful.
Yeah. Senior, what do you think about that? Would you ever want to speak to any of your victims' families if they ever wanted to meet with you?
Well, I've actually spoken to one of them, and when I was in the county jail going through the trial, one of my victims' mother and wife came up to visit me. So I wouldn't have a problem with it, you know. And if they were willing to do it, I would be willing to do it.
How was that experience for you in county?
It was kind of because I wasn't receiving that many visits during the time that I was going through my trial, and when they came up and they told me I had a visit, I was surprised. I didn't know who it would be, so I sat there in the room until they showed up, and as they walked into the room, it dawned on me that this is some of the family members, and it just shocked me. You know, I mean, I kind of I kind of lost my chain of thought when they started speaking to me. But I composed myself, and I answered all their questions. I'm pretty sure to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you remember anything of what they asked you?
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Yeah, I don't recall the conversation right offhand because it's been so many years ago. But I thought that the visit went well, and I think they did too.
That's good.
That's good.
It must be nerve-wracking. I mean, to face that.
Yeah, like I say, I had lost my composure once I realized who they were. But when they started talking to me, I regained my composure and spoke to them as honestly as I possibly. Because
this is global count.
All right, so they're going to call back in.
Yeah.
Was it on a 15 or 20 minute? I can't remember.
Unfortunately.
Your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call.
I think I figured out who Junior is.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Have you figured out who Senior is?
I haven't figured out Senior yet, though. I figured out Junior.
You did?
Yeah.
I've
spoken to him before. I've spoken to him before, haven't I?
Senior, why don't you hang up and call right back?
okay, it's going to shut off in a few seconds.
Okay, perfect. I'll just get you both on the same line.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not going to say anything, but
I think we're just about the same time. Rob said he's figured out who you are, Junior.
Yeah, we had a face-to-face encounter at one point in time.
You guys. Oh yeah, you guys did meet in person.
Yep.
I forgot about that. Actually, you know what's funny?
Unfortunately, we couldn't enjoy each other's company.
Exactly.
You know what's funny? So I was asking them earlier when they called what those cages are in the death row visiting.
Yeah.
And what are those? There's a certain name. Do you remember the name you told me earlier?
Therapeutic modules.
Therapeutic modules. Okay. A cage. That's great. That's a nice euphemism.
Senior told me it was healing and meditation modules.
Healing and meditation. Well, listen, it's a spin.
Those cages, yeah.
Yeah.
The one mental health program, that's what they call those. The one they call those.
Crazy.
That is crazy. Because I'm sitting there listening because before the first time he was on, I sort of it and I was like, why does his voice sound familiar?
You call him the little old lady.
Huh?
The little old lady of the serial killers, you called him.
I did?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Little Bo Peep with the serial killers.
I don't remember that.
You don't?
I do not remember that at all.
Just the flock.
I am, Rob.
What'd you say?
I was asking Rob how he figured out who I am.
I didn't hear him. What are you saying?
He's saying, how did you figure out who he is?
Oh, it started clicking. It just your voice. And I'm like, just the way you talk and the.
I mean, your voice does sound familiar to me too, but I don't know why.
Yeah.
We've done a few podcasts, some of them that you haven't released yet, and some that I've been on before.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You called us at San Quentin.
Okay. Now I know.
Laura was going in.
Oh, when I was in danger.
Now I remember. Okay.
Well, I forgot that that was
Couple hour
yeah.
interview.
Yep.
One day we should just tell the whole that death row dismantling's like.
Yes, we have to tell that whole story.
Well, we actually have video of it happening.
Yeah, we need to release all that stuff.
We have all that. It's all on TikTok.
I think
no, there's a lot we haven't put out yet.
There's so much we haven't put out yet. There's only a little bit.
Not like almost none of the cabin either.
Nope.
No. And we need to do that.
Yeah. Is Senior back?
Yeah, Senior, are you there?
Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so we were talking about a little bit of restorative justice. We're talking about confronting your victims' families or your victims' families, and I think that's it's pretty amazing that both of you have, well, at least Senior. I can't remember before, but it was all like we changed the call there. Junior, did you have an opportunity to confront any of your victims' families?
Yeah, he met with them in county.
Yeah.
It was the husband and mother, you said? Oh, were you talking about Senior or Junior?
I was talking about Junior because we talked about seniors.
Oh, yeah.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Yeah, he was. Junior was the first at San Quentin. Yeah. That must be wild to meet in a cage for the first time. Or I'm sorry, the healing module.
The healing module.
Healing module.
Yeah.
There's only 2 death row inmates who have done that, and one is myself, but the other one, I was in the living room and actually got to see 2 other the victim's family and the perpetrator. It was a famous musician, and I don't know the case exactly. I think his mom or his sister was killed by the guy, and the inmate taking him to visit him and basically told the guy, "Get the hell out of here, what you want." I felt really bad for the guy.
Oh, you told me it's a really famous musician too.
Yeah.
That was what? Was the victim or the?
Was the victim's family who went up there?
No, the victim's family member was he's from a really famous rock band.
Yeah. The details of your case are coming back to me now.
Mm-hmm. Well, you had told me, I didn't even realize it was Lisa Renna's mother who narrowly escaped David Carpenter.
Yeah. Well, we didn't know that until he told us that.
I know he told us. Yeah.
He told us.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I know.
And then he spit Coca-Cola on me on my foot.
Oh, yeah.
He coughed or sneezed or something.
He got covered with Carpenter's spit.
Just on my pants.
It was horrible.
That's awful. I'm glad I missed it. I'm glad I wore blue jeans that day.
You need a shield for Ing when you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had to wear that. I mean, when I did the lockup series, anytime I went into ad seg, I'd have to wear the whole suit, the shield, so you don't get gassed. Yeah, that was my fear of getting gassed by somebody.
Crazy.
Now, this call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Well, what's interesting, I do want to bring it back to you guys, is, when my cousin had murdered my best friend, Nicole, there is that, I just remember there's that question of why you just want to know the why behind it. And I kept visiting him because I wanted that why.
Yeah.
I just needed it. I needed to know. And, I got a full confession out of him, but he wouldn't give me the why behind it. I just said to him after the confession, I just said, you know what? You're never going to give me the why. Like, I could tell right then and there. And I was like, and I'm not going to play this game for you. And you're not going to hold it like a carrot over me, which is what I was trying to do. Yeah.
Well, that's a good question for both of these guys. I mean, for Senior, what was your why? Why did you do the things you did? What motivated you?
For a number of years, I asked myself that question, and I couldn't come up with a legitimate answer. So the best thing I can tell you is I was feeling alone at the time, and my life was meaningless. I didn't care about anybody, including myself, and so I just acted out.
That sounds about right. How about you, Junior?
I won't talk about the why, but I will say this. I'm not avoiding the why, but due to legal purposes, I'm just going to avoid that question. But I'll say this. When you try and present the why to victims' families or to anyone, they look at you and their first reaction is, you're just excusing the behavior, or you're trying to use that to rationalize your behavior. But I can see that being the case with certain people. But they also have to look at it like this. I'm trying to explain who I am, what I went through, what my life was prior to this, so that you understand why. Because if I just say why, it can be amazing. I can say, oh, I was raised as a kid. You don't know whether that's true or not. But if you look at my life history, it explains itself. And it's not me or certain guys trying to rationalize or reason away our so-called actions. Us trying to help you better understand this is what led to this point. I'm not an evil person. Something triggered me or something did happen in my life that led me here. And that's with every murder case. I mean, there's some cause and effect. And when society and victims' families acknowledge this, I think it's going to make for a better system where there's more healing. But a lot of victims' families, and I don't blame them for this, they have a lot of hurt and anger. And it's not only that the perpetrator did what they did, but the justice system kind of screws them over. So they kind of lash out and they don't sit back and look at the reality of stuff. And like I said, they have all the right to have that opinion and those feelings. But I just wish to get a feeling where people can talk about their life history to explain what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand that. I have one more question for each of you because we're getting close to the end of this. And I'll start with you, Senior, and I'll say the question, but Senior, you can answer first. Do you guys, because we have a unique experience because Cindy grew up with someone who was wrongfully convicted and spent 20 years in prison for his parents' murder and was eventually exonerated. Do you know currently anybody that's on death row with you that's been there for a while that you think is possibly innocent?
I can only think of one that comes to mind, and his case has been publicized, so you may recognize the name, and that's Kevin Cooper. You know, I think that he was wrongfully convicted. I think he was railroaded, and I actually believe that a lot of other people believe the same thing. It's just that in the state of California, there's certain counties that you can get caught up in and catch a case in, and they simply refuse to admit that they made a mistake. And so in Kevin Cooper's case, I think the public it eventually will exonerate him, and he'll be released someday.
Yeah.
But that's the only case I can think of.
Didn't his DNA came back? They tested his DNA and it came back positive as his.
I didn't hear about that. I heard it was that they couldn't get a match. They couldn't get anything out of what DNA evidence they had.
They got a match.
They did get a match. Okay. How about you, Junior? Anybody you know?
He just hung up.
Oh, he did?
He'll be right back.
Okay. Well, we're going to be done soon. But that's interesting. And as hard it is for you guys, obviously doing your time for your crime, and how hard it is on the inside and living out your life behind bars. I can't imagine what, we've spoken. Are they off? They both off?
He's just beeping in.
Oh, okay. But because we've helped people get out of prison that were wrongfully convicted. So that's why we've met a lot of them.
Call. You will not be charged for this call, and your telephone number will be monitored. Thank you for using Global Tel Link.
Okay.
All right, you guys back?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay, so I asked Senior this question. Junior, do you know of anybody, have encountered anybody in prison who you feel that was wrongfully convicted and shouldn't be in there?
I know of 3 people that I've had deep conversations with about their case, and I believe that they're factually innocent. And I'm sure there's more. I know a large population of Vacaville, and I socialize a lot with guys. And there's some other ones that I suspect could be very well innocent. The system's not flawless.
No.
There are innocent people in prison. There are people that have DAs that go for harsher sentences or do stuff that they're not necessarily supposed to do, or it doesn't suit justice. It's just, the system's racist, the system's prejudice. It's not that equal pendulum by far.
Yeah. No, I agree with you that the system is problematic sometimes. And, I was a big proponent of the death penalty before we started doing work in wrongful convictions. And it opened up my mind to the flaws that can happen in the system and how the politics of people can get involved. And if you have a prosecutor who isn't up to the job, he could cause a lot of problems, or they could cause a lot of problems. And, and we saw examples of that. We did a whole 3 one-hour documentary about that. And it's crazy sometimes. So it really opened my eyes, but because they can make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. Even the prosecutors and the judge and the police.
Crazy tidbit before we go. I'll give you 2 little tidbits. So my case was originally LA County, but since I had other crimes I was accused of out of Ventura County took over the whole to have one big trial. But LA County was going to go for 25 to life on me. When Ventura got it, they went for death, life without parole in over 30 years. So you can see the discrepancy between.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Not only that, there was an inmate, Scott Peterson, who had his conviction overturned because of a jury member. He had 1 jury member. I had 4 jury members do that same exact thing in reverse. And I haven't gotten my case reversed. So that should show you if you're rich and you got money, or you're white or privileged, you get access. It's not a fair system.
Yeah. So you just illustrated right there that it's not equal for everybody.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Different county, different sentences.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Well, Junior and Senior, thank you guys for being on. I know you guys got to go, and we'll check back with you another time. But thanks for being so open with us about
everything.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Don't melt out there in the heat.
Yeah. All right, you guys take care.
All right, bye, guys.
Bye.
You too.
It's always hard for me because I always feel for the victim and their family, and that a life was lost. But I did like the fact that they both seem to take responsibility for what they did, especially Senior.
Mm-hmm.
He seems like he's reflected on his
How old is Senior?
mistakes.
How old is Senior?
70, mid-70s.
That could be why too. But I you can hear it that he's regretful.
Yes.
Yeah, but what's his name? Clark was up there too, but
no, he didn't care.
He wasn't remorseful at all.
No.
It really is Yeah. I mean, you look at Carpenter, who's still like, I'm innocent. Clark.
No, he just continues to say he's
In his
innocent
90s.
and 90
It's
years
crazy.
old.
And then you have, it's such a mixed bag. And then you have someone like Bittaker, who's so sadistic and then just switches at the end there. Out.
Well, he switched because of you. That's
Yeah.
why. I don't think he would have ever switched if you had never contacted him and did all the work that you had. I don't think, you know, you basically, you know, opened him up.
Yeah.
You know, literally, and you know, you struck a chord with him, and everyone's going to read it in your book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's really interesting, but you know.
Yeah. It's like, how do we do that with all of them though?
Right.
It's, my God, you know.
Yeah.
What was really interesting, just a little aside from our other podcast, because we were up at Alcatraz this past weekend.
I'm so jealous. I saw the pictures.
Exactly. Well, anytime you want to go, we know the guy there, and they took us into this private tour underneath the catacombs where, you know, they used to shackle. It was like just this, you know, it was a dungeon basically.
Yeah.
So scary and
the
awful.
bars were all removed, but you could see and you'll see some of the stuff. We're going to be posting videos and stuff, but there was like, they shut the lights off on us for like 30 seconds down there. And it's so insulated from the sound. You can't even hear the water.
Oh, it's terrifying.
And it's pitch black. We're in there. And they used to have them not only in the, like there, but they had them like shackled with their hands above their head. And they would be down there for like months.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's really awful.
Yeah. And that's when it was like, I think it was like in the early 1900s or something like that, for something like, you would be put down there, like the Mennonites who didn't want to go into World War I.
Oh, yeah.
Conscientious objectors, they would be put down there.
So I wanted to ask you guys, because what's going on? I've heard Trump said he wants to reopen Alcatraz.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they actually sent people from the Bureau of Prisons, and they had surveyors and stuff like that.
I don't see how they could. It's so busy.
How could they? Yeah.
I mean, thousands of people were there. It was insane. And all the ferries were booked every single day that we were there.
Literally.
It's a small prison. It only houses 250.
Every single ferry was booked all day, the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But, you know, you can definitely feel the walls and hear they're all stories and stuff.
And we saw a whale.
Oh, really?
Like a 40.
Maybe that's a sign of something.
And you're like, how do these people escape here? This is so scary.
But anyway, thank you for another good round table there with those guys. Those guys are good. They're, like I said, they're pretty open.
Yeah.
And like I said, I figured out, I was like, I don't know what it was, but he said something, and it was like,
I talked to Turner this week, and he might be doing an episode coming up.
Oh, fantastic. So that'd be great.
And I got another one they're all, now that they're hearing each other all go on and they're realizing it's not so scary. they're a lot more want to talk.
Are they like usually standing by while they're like on the phone listening to them talk?
Yeah, well, you know, it's just they're comfortable with me one-on-one, but it's like the idea when you say podcast and then two new people, it's like it freaks them the hell out. So now they're seeing a little bit more of like, it's chill. Yeah, so we're going to get a lot more on for you guys soon.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting to hear their perspective, and you know, I'm glad that, you know, I think it's interesting that for the audience to understand that, you know, I mean, some of these guys are animals. Let's just be clear. I mean, and others.
We see that like with when we have Exxon compared to like these guys, you see what a mixed bag it really is, and how many you really see like the different. This is why I always go into the typology of them. Is like really look at the typology, because you're not dealing with the same beast. You really aren't. You have to rely on that profile, that behavioral analysis you're going to get with each one.
Yeah, they're all psychotic snowflakes.
Exactly.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right,
great.
Thanks, Laura.
Hold on a sec.
Talk to you guys.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.